Alrighty, I think we're going to get started. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're hoping that you walk away from this knowing more about Angel Flight West and having shared your ideas with us. Our plan, as I mentioned earlier, is for the operations staff to do a brief presentation, give you some topics that we might discuss, and then we will go into breakout rooms. There will be 3 breakout rooms, and Isabel, Ann, and Alejandro will each lead one of those sessions. There will be a scribe in each one of those rooms that will take down the notes on what you discuss, and then we'll come back and present those. Our hope that you come away with some actionable items for us in each group, giving us ways to make your experience better. Next slide. This is sometimes how we feel about wanting you to make sure you have the best experience possible. A few reminders, please remain on mute until your breakout sessions. You'll notice that the Zoom moderator has you on mute now. You can unmute yourself, but we ask that you not do so until you get into the break rooms so that we avoid hearing background noise. Please enter your questions in the chat right now. Don't use the raise hand function yet. We'll ask that you do that later on. But if you have something that comes up now, go ahead and put it in the chat, and we'll get to it towards the end. And then when you're in the breakout rooms, it would be nice if you turn your video on. I know not everybody can do that or wants to, and I know during the main presentation, many will have their cameras off. But if during the breakout rooms when you're talking and discussing, it's great if you could possibly have your cameras on. Let me give you a brief overview of the schedule and the topics. Topic 1 is going to be what information would you like to see when you're looking for a mission? Topic 2 would be what information or questions would you like to share with the coordination staff during the mission request process? Topic 3 will be what information do you need in the days leading up to and on the day of the mission? The breakout sessions will be about 30 minutes. It'll kind of depend on, I'll be moving from room to room. And if it looks like people are wrapping up early, then we'll come back together early. And then we'll have a discussion afterwards. Each person will present and we'll have Q&A. Okay, at this time, I'd like to introduce Isabel. Isabel is a mission ops coordinator, and she's been with the organization since 2015 in a variety of capacities.
Thank you, Sherry. So for the first topic, we are going to be looking at how we currently present our missions to our volunteers. The goal for this breakout session will be to, 1, determine what information would you like to have, 2, what information you don't need, and 3, how would you like that information presented to you? We would really like to hear what you like about what we're currently doing and what you would like to see change. Next slide, please. So currently we have 7 different ways that we present missions to you. Next slide. Next slide, please. So on the left, you'll see the available missions page on VPoids. This is what you see when you are signed into VPoids on your web browser. This is the basic view, which is the view we encourage you to use. The compact and advanced views do need some work. On the right is the automated missions available email that goes out twice a week. Volunteers who have filled out their preferences in their profile will receive a 3rd missions available email each week that is more targeted based on their preferences. Next slide. We also have what we call begging emails. The begging emails are typically sent 2 days before the flight is supposed to take place. These are more personalized emails sent by the staff for missions that have not been filled on their own. Staff sometimes will also send these more personalized emails for missions that have the potential to be challenging to fill or that could use big iron support. For example, we found these specialized emails to be relatively successful in securing big iron pilots for flights we have taken in as special requests. So one example being a long 3-leg relay where the patient is in a more fragile state and wouldn't be able to handle changing planes multiple times. Typically, those passengers would not qualify for our services, but we do make exceptions for especially compelling cases. The text alerts are similar to the begging emails in that they are typically sent close to the mission date, usually the day before the flight is supposed to take place. When text alerts are sent, that means we're getting close to exhausting our options for finding pilots. And then our final resort for finding pilots for open missions are phone calls. If you receive a phone call from the staff, that means we are pretty desperate to fill the flight at that point. Next slide. So this is what the available missions page on the mobile app looks like. Just as an aside, we have heard from volunteers that the light gray text is very hard to read, and we will be working to correct that. And then lastly, on the right, you will see an example of the alerts volunteers receive when a new flight request has been submitted for a passenger they have previously flown. You will also have an opportunity to discuss the mobile app in greater detail with our webmaster, Stefan, during his focus group today at 12 p.m. Next slide. So we have a few topics we thought might be of interest to this discussion for the breakout group based off of suggestions brought up by volunteers in the past and other ideas that the staff has brainstormed over time. These are just our ideas. We absolutely encourage new topics and ideas as well. And I will be going into greater detail about these topics in my session.
Oops. Sorry there, handling a little tech concern. One quick second. Okay, at this time, I would like to introduce Alejandro. Alejandro.
Nope.
Anne?
Nope. Anne.
Sorry, guys.
People get us confused a lot, though.
Yeah, it must be my face. Get confused.
I am so
spelled too.
sorry. What slide number are we on? I'm sorry, I was trying to fix a
Number
login
11.
issue. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, at this time, I would like to introduce Anne. I apologize, guys, for that. Anne is a mission operations coordinator and has been with the organization since 2016. Thank you, Anne.
Thanks, Sherry. Hello, everyone. This topic is about the mission request step. So let's say you've reviewed the list of open missions, you found a mission that you would like to volunteer for, and you're about to request that mission. Next slide. We'd like to know what information would you like to share or request during this step to make it easier for you to fly or drive that mission. Our goal is to identify those key pieces of information to implement into this mission request step. Next slide. Oh, can you guys hear me?
Now we can.
Sherry? Okay, great. Let's take a look at our current mission request in VPOIDs. At the top, you can review the mission details. This is the same information that is available when you're reviewing the list of open missions. As to the information that you can touch or edit, that would be the origin and destination FBOs, your aircraft information, requesting backup assistance or a mission assistant. Please note that if you check yes for backup wanted, the coordinators do receive the request, but we currently don't have the resources to look for backup pilots for every request. However, the coordinators will work on finding a backup pilot if the mission is at risk, like if weather becomes a problem or if a VFR command pilot needs an IFR command pilot backup. Also, please note that if you checked yes for mission assistant, due to COVID and the risk of exposure, we're discouraging mission assistants from joining on missions for safety reasons. There's also a field called comment, which is the catch-all for any and all information that you want to communicate to the coordinators. As you can see, there really isn't a lot of information interaction here by the volunteers. Next slide. And this is what our Earth Angels see when they request a ground mission. There isn't any information interaction here except for in the comment field and the get driving directions at the top. The Earth Angel program is still relatively new to Angel Flight West, and as the program grows, we're learning about the different areas in which coordination kind of falls short of the goal. At times, for some passengers, ground transportation is every bit as important as a flight. We've had some flights almost cancel because there wasn't any transportation on the ground. So it's important for us to continue improving the coordination aspect of our Earth Angel program, which hopefully may include a new Earth Angel coordinator to help with recruitment and to assist with filling ground transportation legs. Next slide. And this is what the mission request for command pilots and Earth Angels look like on the mobile app. Same deal here, pretty limited information interaction if you're a command pilot, and almost no information interaction if you're an Earth Angel. Next slide. Here are some of the possible ideas that we can discuss during our breakout session. A lot of the ideas here may be familiar to you. You might have brought them up to the coordination team in the past. I won't talk about all of them in this overview, but I will talk about a few ideas that need a little bit more background. Request backup pilot assistance or information about passenger backup plan. I know we talked earlier about how every backup pilot request isn't fulfilled by the coordinators, but that doesn't mean that we can't have a discussion on those requests and whether or not we would need to revisit the way we're handling those requests. Additionally, we can also talk about the backup plans that the coordinators can provide using the Passenger Assistance Fund. There's also an idea here called the Big Iron Sweep, and that refers to relay missions that historically are more challenging to cover with the 4 or 6-seat aircraft, but would fit the mission parameter for a big iron like a jet. We're trying to more actively engage our big iron population in picking up these missions. So one idea that might be interesting to discuss is getting permission in advance from our volunteers on relay missions and giving up their portion of the relay if a big iron offers to sweep the full trip. The other side of this idea would be to present a big iron pilot with the option to sign up for the full trip at the mission request step. There's another idea here, communicating volunteer offers to buy commercial tickets. Maybe you want to volunteer on a flight, but your schedule is uncertain. So you offer to purchase a commercial ticket in case your schedule ends up not working or weather is an issue for flying. Or perhaps you see like a relay mission traveling from hub to hub that can be covered by a quick Southwest or Alaska Airline commercial flight. Communicating command pilot offers to help with ground transportation. At last year's retreat, we shared the problem of canceling many ground transportation legs because we weren't able to find Earth Angels. Some of the volunteer pilots there were surprised at that canceled number because they would have helped with ground transportation with either their own car or an FBO car if they had known that the passenger needed help. There's also an idea here of helping volunteers to combine multiple missions to make their flying more efficient. Some volunteers already do this on their own by searching the available missions list, but we're wondering if the coordination staff can help you match your mission with another mission so that you can fly both. Would that be helpful to you? We're hoping that this function might spark interest in volunteers who can only fly several times a year, or for big iron volunteers who want to set aside one day for flying and make the most of their day. Right now, it's not doable because of the pandemic, but hopefully this can be a possibility post-COVID. All right, I hope this slide has sparked 1 or 2 ideas for you. Our goal today is to look at the information presented to you at the mission request step and to figure out what information we should include and to make it easier to collect information from you so that your mission becomes easier. Next slide.
Thank you, Anne. Next up is Alejandro, or Emilio, as we are going to forever remember him. Alejandro started on April 1st of 2019, so he's rolling up on 2 years here. So Alejandro.
Thank you, Sherry, and thank you, Isabel and Anne. You guys are both very tough acts to follow, gotta say that. But hello, everyone. My topic is going to cover what you need to know and what you'd like to know in the days leading up to your mission, as well as on the day of your mission. We want to focus on what kind of support we can lend you as the mission date approaches to make the whole process feel seamless, efficient, and most importantly, fun for you guys. So we're going to take a look at the different forms of communication that are essential to the coordination process. We want your help in determining what are the most critical pieces of information you want to receive and how you want to receive them. We'll take a close look at your mission today email, the volunteer discussion platform, and the mission itinerary form, and then sort of broaden the discussion from there. Next slide, please. So this is the email that you should receive early morning on the day of your mission. You'll notice that it gives you access to the following things: your mission itinerary, one-time waivers for passengers or companions. We now collect these ahead of time, so you can collect them again plane side or car side if you wish, but that's completely optional. You'll notice new guidelines for mission assistance, our new waiver procedure, a link to file your mission report, and links to weather reports at your origin and destination airports. In our breakout discussion, we can take a look at the information presented and see if there are other pieces of relevant information you'd like to see on the morning of your mission. Here we have the volunteer discussion thread, which appears in your email inbox when you sign up for a mission. It is a tool that's used to connect all volunteers and coordination staff to any given mission. Basically, it allows you to communicate via email with the coordination team, along with any other volunteers that are signed up to fly and drive different legs or directions of the trip. On the left, you'll see the familiar view of the thread in your email inbox. And on the right, you'll see the view that the coordination staff sees and works with every day as we coordinate missions. In our group, I hope that we can discuss the best ways to utilize this helpful tool in making sure that everyone stays on the same page and is comfortable with the details of the mission. Here we have a copy of the mission itinerary form. It contains the patient's contact and personal information, volunteer contact information, and all of the relevant mission details, including origin and departure airports, FBOs, date and timing, baggage information, destination facility, among other information. In our breakout, let's aim to get at what's most important and helpful pieces of information so that we can add anything that will help volunteers like you know exactly what's going on the day of your mission.
Okay. Oops. Okay, we are now going to go into the breakout room. So what will happen is you'll automatically be put into a breakout room. It's again random. So some of you will be with Alejandro, some with Anne, and some with Isabel. The scribes will be in each one of those rooms, and we will see you back here in a little while. Okay, looks like all the breakout rooms are closed and everybody is back. So at this point, we're going to call on the moderators or the scribes for each group to present. Henny, if you could bring up room 1, the Google Doc for room 1, and Kim, if you could turn on your mic, turn off your, there you go, mute, and present what you talked about in your group.
Okay, like I was saying to Isabel, I hope I can read my scratches and do justice to what was discussed. It started out with a discussion with an Earth Angel who said that it would be helpful to be copied on the begging emails that go out so that maybe they could help connect to pilots if there was an issue about getting someone signed up. This person also mentioned that maybe the driving directions are unnecessary because most people have GPS apps on their phones or have the capacity to, get directions on their own. So maybe that would just save some time on the coordinator end and having to put the directions in. Also, it was mentioned, maybe it would be good to make it easier to sign up to drive both land legs So you don't have to sign up going and then sign up again coming, that if they could somehow do it in one go would be helpful. We had a question about the discussion thread, about making it more efficient as far as communications or questions go. This person said that sometimes even when the alert box is clicked, they always don't get a response from a coordinator, and that might be a glitch in the system somehow. And I think Isabel mentioned that Stefan is working on that. We had something, would it be possible for non-emergency calls for pilot calling in for some reason, that they could leave a message? And I think Sherry said that the voicemail message on our end of things doesn't say that you need to press 1 to leave a message. So that might be a little unclear, but we're asking about that, being able to leave a message for a coordinator that they could get back to them later. We had a question about being able to search in the missions available email that goes out for missions, being able to search for missions within a certain radius, a distance. So not just the home airport, but being able to see multiple airports. This person also said it would be helpful to know the severity of their passenger's illness. So they would have a sense of how to approach that person during the mission. Just it would be helpful to be able to gauge that situation. We also had a comment that it would be helpful to know if it was the passenger's first flight, for the pilot to know that. We had a question asking if Earth Angels routinely use FlightAware, which this person said would be really helpful for the Earth Angels to know the pilot's ETA, if they were able to go into that directly and have a better sense of time. We had something about making it easier to find the pilot's tail number on the roster, which I think relates back to FlightAware and being able to track the pilot's plane coming in. One of the pilots pointed out that some of them use their AFW call sign and not their tail number. So in that situation, it would be, you wouldn't be able to find a tail number. So I think Sherry's recommendation or Isabel's recommendation said to look for the call sign, which should be on the itinerary. That would be helpful. We also had a question about multi-leg missions that are lacking a pilot on one of the legs. And the question was, could one plane do multiple legs with different pilots in case there were mileage restrictions on how far a pilot could fly? So this person was saying, could we do one plane with 2 pilots? So one pilot, you know, does a leg, and then another pilot in the same plane could do another leg, and that maybe that would make filling the mission easier. This person mentioned that pilots can network amongst themselves to help build a bridge for that mission, which also takes some work off the coordinators. And then the last thing was that something I saw in the chat that everybody might have already seen, but that was the comment that passenger and pilot photos would be helpful, so that both of those people, it would be easier to find each other and maybe make them feel more comfortable if they have a sense of what that person looks like or how they can find them. And that's all I have. Hope I got everything right.
Great. I'm sure you did. Thank you so much, Kim. Next is group 2, and the scribe for group 2, I believe, was Adrian. Is that right?
Yes, and I was the scribe, and I will send you all of those notes. But
Oh.
Mark was kind
Mark is
enough.
going to do the presenting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Mark, thank you.
Yep. No worries. So in our group, there were, which was about current mission requests and working with the mission coordinators, we had 4 main topics that we covered and discussed. The first one was a conversation about how to more efficiently and better tie in multiple legs, the choice of multiple legs in the current mission request form. So the idea that there is a easy identifier to say, this is a 2-legged mission. Would you like to take both? And you can just click there. That does 2 things. It reminds the pilot that it is a 2-legged mission, and it points out the idea that maybe they could pick up both. And rather, like for me, which I often do 2-legged ones, I don't have to click on one and then go back to the mission thing, find the other one and click on the second one. So an easy way to sort of market, you know, that you could pick up 2 legs, and an easy way to actually make it happen. Same with the Earth Angels, that maybe there's a tie-in with the Earth Angels, because a lot of times pilots will be the driver. So if imagine there was a 3-button click for a, you know, you could click on one leg, click on the second leg, and click on the Earth Angel portion, and you collect the whole mission all at once. So it's sort of this idea of tying in, picking up multiple legs and Earth Angels all together in the current mission request form. Now, that was number 1 that we talked a lot about. Number 2 was the backup pilots. And if there was some technological way or interesting way to allow pilots, as opposed to pilots who are flying the mission saying, I want a backup pilot, a way for pilots to look at missions that have already been taken and saying, oh, I could be a backup pilot on that one easily, and they can click themselves onto it. That way, you guys as a mission coordination staff, when a pilot drops out, and you know, you can quickly look and see, oh, there were 3 people that signed themselves up as possible backups on it. So that was number 2. Also, in this backup pilot scenario, if there's a way to identify why a pilot said they want a backup, if it's about a scheduling issue or a mechanical issue, then the potential backup pilots know that it wasn't a weather-related issue, and so they're more willing to sign up and be a backup pilot. So identifying why a pilot might want a backup pilot would be helpful. Point number 3, and this came up, Kim actually brought this up from her group, that if there was a better way to filter airports. So, you know, on the mission, current mission request form, you can, as a filter, you can put in the airport you fly out of, and the choices will come up. If you could add multiple airports to that filter system so that you could see more airports, so a better way of filtering many options for airports for a pilot in a specific area. For example, one of our pilots is in San Francisco. Of course, there's 20 or 30 airports around there, and in Los Angeles. So if you could put in multiple airports in the filter, it would help pilots to find more missions for themselves. So that was 3. And then the last point was really more of a comment than anything. To be careful that we don't frustrate our pilots, our command pilots in smaller aircrafts, if we're overly driving big iron and multiple legged things. It might get frustrating for the pilots in smaller planes, and they might feel like, you know, they're losing their place in the organization. So just being cautious of that in relation to the, you know, our first category, which was tying in the 2 legs. So those were the 4 main things we discussed in our group. It was lively, it was fun, and that's it.
Thank you, Mark. The next group 3 was Josh, I believe. And Handy, if you could put up that slide now for group 3. That'd be great.
Yes, we had the best group, obviously. We started off talking just about the mission today email. Our question was what information you need the days leading up and on to the day of the mission. We kind of ended up going all over the place, but it was all good info. Several of the pilots and Earth Angels said that that day of is the most helpful email, just to have everything in one spot. In terms of biggest challenges for those days leading up is lack of passenger response. Eric was suggesting perhaps in the intake process, figure out what passengers' communication preference is, whether that be text, email, phone call, alternate people to call if they can't get hold of you. Got a lot of positive feedback too, in terms of having that stuff in one place and the improvements that happened. Another piece of information that suggested it'd be helpful to that original question is confirming ground transportation plan for the passengers and letting pilots and the Earth Angels know that, and what other options might be available in terms of ride sharing or crew cars or shuttles, from the hospitals themselves, that kind of thing. Jesse requested that Earth Angel emails be included on those itinerary emails that go out. Those are left off currently. Same thing, the text when the plane lands or some way to communicate that people are there. Someone else mentioned another group, Earth Angels using FlightAware. She does the same thing on her own, so maybe integrating that would be helpful. Same thing on the communications leading up. Our phones today, if they don't recognize a passenger, often filter them into a spot that you don't check very often. So the easy opportunity to, I guess a lot of our volunteers are manually adding those contacts in their phone. So an easy opportunity to just make those contacts in your phone was a request. The mission text thread we talked about a little bit inside VPOIDs, that it's helpful, but it's a little clunky. So perhaps making that a little easier to follow and read. Jesse suggests moving some of that stuff for the most recent messages up to the top. And then we talked a little bit about info. This is more general stuff, but having info for backup options would be really helpful for safety decisions and otherwise. Eric had mentioned that. Same thing with purchase options, if available, would be helpful for them to make that decision, how to use their resources. And then again, similar to some of these other 2- and 3-leg conversations, the ability to utilize your plane, so round trips being one of them, or having people going each way, is a big attraction to pilots that Jeff and others were saying. And then in terms of how we can do all of these things better, like setting the expectations and communications for how we arrange a flight, or if we bump pilots, or letting them know up front on a multi-leg relay that, hey, we're going to look for somebody that can go further if possible, so that we may be contacting you if that becomes available, and just setting those types of communications and expectations up front. All of our pilots said they would totally understand that and would welcome that it's not just some random thing, that there's method behind the madness, and would also help them think more critically and creatively on how they can best use their resources. So those are that's kind of the recap of our session, and I appreciate everyone who contributed. It was a good conversation.
Great. Thank you, Josh. So a couple things I just want to comment on. First off, I can't remember which group it was now, but one of the groups made the comment about making sure that everything is not set up specifically or leaning more heavily towards the big iron and forgetting all of the other pilots. I can promise you that won't happen. There may have been a fair amount of discussion about that today, but having said that, the 4- to 6-seat airplanes, you guys do a good bulk of what we're doing. So the idea is to be able to use both groups of pilots in the way that's beneficial to everybody, pilots and passengers and alike. And once again, I'll say to those Earth Angels that are here, the same holds true for you. Is our hope is to get all of you incorporated and into the process in the way that helps you the most. If you have some questions, there's a couple ways we can take them now. You can put them in the chat. If you want to say your question, you can raise your hand using the raise hand function that's down at the bottom of the screen. For those of you who don't know, you can click on the participants button. I believe it's right there at the bottom of your screen. I can't look at it because I'm a host and I don't have that function, but I think most of you can find that. And if not, you can do the old-fashioned way and raise your hand like this. So that'd be great. Henny, if you could pull that down so that I can see the whole group, that would be awesome. Okay, give it please bear with us while we look for your raised hands, and my staff, if you could help by looking for raised hands on the participants or on the screen views, and then also in the chat questions. So I'm going to look at the chat questions right now. And Jesse has a question, which is, can there be a backup system for Earth Angels similar to pilots? And the answer is yes, there can. Currently, that can't happen because we don't have enough Earth Angels in general, but once we get that, and you may have heard Josh talk about yesterday, and I mentioned it as well, the grant we received from the Hilton Foundation, which is allowing us to sometime this year hire an Earth Angel coordinator, and so that person's responsibility will be varied, not just coordinating, but it'll be recruiting Earth Angels and onboarding them as well, to make everybody's experience more seamless. That's good. Let's see. Do I have any more questions? If you've got a question and we're not seeing it, please just turn your mic on and shout out. Jesse.
Quick question about what the pilots would prefer. Usually when I actually arrive at the destination for pickup or picking up a client from a flight, I usually text the client, the passenger, rather than the pilot, thinking that the pilot is too busy landing the plane. Would the pilots rather be notified that I have arrived?
Is there a pilot there that flies fairly often that could answer that?
You could probably, when you send that text, you could probably just as simply send it to both of them.
Okay.
That would solve that.
Okay, good idea. Thank you.
Anybody else have a question? Go ahead, speak up, raise your hand. Larry.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment there. By regulation, we are not allowed to have our cell phones on while in flight. So we're not going to be getting those texts until we actually get onto the ground. FCC has regulation on that. So we're going to be on the ground before we actually see any of those texts.
Right. Yep, absolutely. And we want everybody to make sure they're following all the rules. Appreciate that. Thanks, Larry. Let's see, anybody else? Josh, I assume that wasn't raising your hand. Listen, everybody, we got a lot of great information here today, and what the coordination staff will be doing is we will be taking all of these ideas, we'll be taking our earlier presentations and putting all of this together and sending it out to you. Please be patient. It's going to take us a little while to do that. There's stuff going on this week still where we'll be participating in. We hope you all join us for the upcoming sessions. Again, at noon today is the lunch and learn about the app, so hopefully you can join us for that. And then following that is the UC Davis session. Josh, can you give a quick explanation of the UC Davis project?
Sure. For those of you who know, command pilot Sanjay Saigal flies a Cirrus out of Palo Alto. He's an instructor for the MBA program, not MBA, but it's for data analysts, whatever the equivalent is. It's escaping me right now. So they do projects usually with for-profit companies, and they take a really specific thing and then use the data to inform and make business recommendations for them. So this is the third year they've selected us as one of those programs. And they take a very specific subset of a challenge that we're experiencing, use the data that we have in our system, and then talk with all the user groups and so forth and make recommendations. So that section is on what they're doing this year, and it's really routing optimization. So for those of you who think that we use the wrong airports, or that there's better ways to do that, that's exactly what they're looking at based on both pilot populations and information about those airports and weather and a whole host of other data points. So that's what that session is on. It is interesting, and would welcome your creative thought if you're interested in attending.
Great, and that is at 4 o'clock today, I believe?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. So please join us for those. We've got lots of interesting stuff going on tomorrow. You can see all of that on the webpage, same place that you used to join here today. We thank all of you for joining us. We once again, we understand how valuable your time is, and we appreciate it. It means a lot to us to be able to hear what works well for you so that we can make the process the best possible for everybody. Thank you again. Thank you to those that have posted in the chat or have sent us emails saying you're enjoying and you're learning from what we're doing. We truly appreciate it. Hope you all have a good day, and we will talk to you soon.
Hey, John, can you stay on for a minute? I got a quick question for you.
Is that doable?
I'll stay for a minute.
Okay, just real quick.
Sure.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.